The conversation that that we have to continue to have is, as we move to these new forms and continue to use them more, such as wind and solar, we have to recognize that in order for those to work, I mean, more efficiency in buildings, those things all are great, but the highest driver of carbon pollution in the United States right now is transportation. And so as we move to wind and solar and electric powered vehicles, we're moving towards batteries. Batteries are a part of this conversation. And the metals we use in batteries are, I'm just going to use two examples because China essentially controls about 90% of the world market in rare earth metals. And then cobalt is actually incredibly important for electric vehicles, and that's mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So as we move forward to this, and we have done a lot over the last decade to become energy independent in this country, but are we having conversations about that infrastructure and what we're doing? Because I'm not aware of a lot of rare earth mines being permitted in the United States. And I know for a fact that China doesn't always have our best economic interests at heart. So as we continue to transition into these things, don't we have, I mean, because we're offshoring pollution doesn't necessarily mean we're dealing with carbon emissions, but at what expense? And that's my question. And I'll start with Mr. Loris, but really ask everyone, because most of these places would be qualified as Superfund sites in the United States. I mean, they're incredibly toxic to groundwater. They're incredibly toxic to the environment. So in our quest for cleaner energy, it doesn't do us a lot of good if we're exporting pollution, whether that means we're exporting oil, natural gas, coal to companies that don't, or to countries that don't have our regulations, are creating a market in countries that have an economic incentive to mine these products as fast as possible and not in the cleanest way possible. And then from a national security and economic security standpoint, do we have to be concerned that one country will control 90% of essential materials we need to create these batteries?
Well, I think from an environmental efficiency standpoint, your point is well taken. If you look across the board as to what the United States does with regards to mining and operations or cement manufacturing, our energy intensity is far better than developing countries, and our emissions per unit of output is far lower than developing countries. And so if we enact expensive regulations that are going to drive these companies overseas, you are essentially exporting those CO2 emissions and making no noticeable impact in climate. You're actually making things worse. So that's problematic. Secondly, I think the environmental review and the permitting processes for all energy infrastructure projects are in need of reform, whether it's for rare earths mining, whether it's for renewable projects and transmission lines and siting. The more we have competitive regulatory reform that allows these technologies to come online, that allows these mines to be developed, the better off we'll be in terms of an economic efficiency standpoint, but also just from an energy access standpoint.
I think both concerns are valid. If we are fortunate and make an energy transition quickly, that will probably involve electrification of transportation. That implies, if it's going to work and reduce carbon dioxide emissions at the same time, a grid with higher levels of storage and a smart, advanced grid that can wheel the intermittent renewable power, merge it with remnant amounts of fossil fuel power over time.
And I just want to, just briefly, but storage requires batteries.
Yeah, that's great. Storage, these issues about rare earth metals, et cetera, are issues of batteries too. But it's not a solution to the problem to let an industry develop here, which would maybe satisfy security concerns, and let it be as dirty as the same industry is in China. It's a healthy, strong, reasonable regulatory system that we need to make sure we don't wind up with a cesspool here the way it is in some other countries.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, we talk about permitting for solar and wind and the problems we run into in that, whether it's at state or the federal level. I mean, I can't imagine, I mean, in all reality, the permitting for a rare earth mine, I mean, we are not going, I mean, developing these quickly is not, I hope we do develop them, but I'm a little skeptical that we can develop them quickly. I'm more concerned about reliance on a lot of these countries to provide our energy, which after working hard to become energy independent. But with that, I know I'm past my time, so thank you, Mr. Chair.